Hi students, this is an introductory video for Allen Ginsberg's Howl. So I'm going to kind of discuss some of the materials on Canvas that are available, as well as an introduction to the time period, as well as all the historical and cultural context that embody it. So let's go ahead and turn to Canvas. I'm going to be talking about the poem in another few videos because I don't want this to be too long. But I'm referring to what's in week 4 module, the Howl materials. So there's a set of videos that really go over the context. So just like The Wasteland was about post-World War I life in Europe, this poem is really about post-World War II life in America. So we go from a setting of, England and London to really America and New York. So this first video really talks about what led up to World War I, and it really goes over, the rise of the Nationalist Socialist Party in Germany, the rise of Hitler, and then this really talks about how America got involved in the war. And they're pretty short videos, so definitely watch all of them. And then this is about the baby boomer generation, which is important because they are the lost generation. And then you've got Allen Ginsberg reading Howl. So if you want to listen to him actually speaking and reading it, definitely click on that. There's more parts to it, but I just included the first part. Also, in the week 4 module, I have class notes here. And if you want to look at this while you're reading the poem, I'm going to do a little lecture on this, but I've had students that when they read it will write on the board about things they think are connected to the different parts of the poem. It is divided into 3 parts, so feel free to look these over as you're reading. So just to summarize kind of some of the things that the videos say, World War II really kind of started after the Treaty of Versailles. So after World War I, Germany lost and they were in economic fallout, and they basically had to take responsibility for that. And so there was a lot of anger, a lot of animosity. They really wanted a scapegoat for what happened. And really there's the rise of the fascist party, the Nationalist Socialist Party, which Hitler was part of. And again, they really wanted to get back into another war. We've got a 20-year period between World War I and World War II, but they're primed for it. And it begins, right? Germany basically almost takes over Europe, and the United States really doesn't get involved in the war until pretty late. And it all kind of starts with, the bombing of Pearl Harbor. And because of that, we retaliate, we bomb Japan. And we also in that time are interning the Japanese and the Italians into internment camps on American soil. So there's a lot going on. Also, with the World War II, we've got the end of the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl, if you've studied those. Some of the hardest times that America has faced. And post-World War II really have just an economic boom, mostly because of the GI Bill. So you've got soldiers coming back with money to spend to buy houses, to start families, and you've got a whole generation of a really baby boom, as they say, of young people coming into America. And so you've really got, it's a prosperous time. There's the rise of consumerism and capitalism, and the rise of the use of credit. So people had credit for the first time. So there's really a big pride associated with being American at that time. And, there was a draft. So young men between the ages of 21 and 35 were drafted, but most of them gladly. They wanted to be a part of this war. They thought it was, part of American pride. They wanted to defend democracy and freedom. And so again, it's not like Vietnam. There was a lot of people that really wanted to go. And Howl is kind of the aftermath of this. So Howl is really part of what they call the lost generation. Not necessarily the baby boomers, but right before them. So it's basically the young people that grew up, right after World War II and really saw the fallout of it. And Howl was really speaking to the after effects of World War II on American life, especially in the cities. It was published at City Lights Bookstore in San Francisco in North Beach. It is still there. If you get a chance to visit it when it's safe again, definitely do that. It was published in 1956. And it really kind of it's an interesting poem. It's, you look at T.S. Eliot, and even though T.S. Eliot is pretty, rebellious for the time period, Howl is even more rebellious. It's in stream of consciousness. It's really just one long thought. And if you look, there's literally no periods. It just keeps going and going and going. And there is a system to it. There's a rhyme scheme to it. It's almost an iambic pentameter if you read it out loud and if you listen to Ginsberg reading it. So there is a rhythm to it. There is thought put into it. There's a lot of repetition. There's images and symbolism, and a lot of references to, the Bible, to Greek mythology, just like there was in The Wasteland. And there's a lot of references to what was going on at the time, right? There's a lot of anti-conservatism, anti-government, anti-corporations, and really people that were called the vagabonds. They were wandering across the United States, really looking for answers, right? It's really a lot of existential thought, just like in World War One, post-World War One. What's my place? What is my purpose? How could this atrocity happen? Remember, like, the Holocaust had just happened. And so people are just like, if there's a God, how could this occur? Like, how could these things happen, right? Under God's watch. And so people were very much questioning everything. And you've got the rise of the suburban lifestyle. You've got, man and wife and the white picket fence and the children and the woman's in the kitchen. The man's off to work in a suit and hat. And so, it's very like suburban life. And the lost generation's really up against that, everything was very conservative, very vanilla, as they say. And so the lost generation and Howl in general is really speaking up against that. It's really about the sexual revolution, right? Civil rights even. And then through that, there was a lot of, post-trauma from the war, and also just dealing with not fitting in exactly. Especially because Ginsberg was a Jewish gay man, very openly actually, in New York. And a lot of them ended up coming up to San Francisco. San Francisco is really a haven for counterculture. In Oakland at the same time, you've got the Black Panther Party starting out. So you've really got a lot going on in San Francisco. It's like kind of the epicenter of counterculture post-World War II. And in this poem, you're going to see a lot of references to anti-capitalism, anti-government, trauma, drugs and addiction, the sexual revolution, and also institutionalization, because, again, we're dealing with a conservative time, and people don't want to deal with people with post-traumatic stress. They don't want to deal with people that have addictions. And even if you were, just gay, you were considered to have a mental disorder. And so a lot of people that ended up in institutions were just not ones that were going along with the status quo.